Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Listening to my colleague, there is a question that comes to mind, and that is this. On our side, we read a lot, or we have read a lot, and if we look in a book, often there are 20 pages of bibliography, and every 2 or 3 pages there is a quote by an author. What will happen is there will be a page at the end of the book where it says that all the end notes and footnotes must be destroyed at the end of 30 days. This is completely ridiculous. I think that it's an interesting initiative, but they really have to find a better way of doing it. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. Thank you very much for that comment, colleague. I agree that this bill, as I have already said, does not help creators. This digital lock will not help creators or consumers. So for all of those reasons that I have just listed, we will work in order to reform the bill. That is Bill C-11, because it is inadequate. It's important for Canadians. Canadians have spent twice as much, $1.4 billion on cultural entertainment than on sporting events. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Marc-Aurèle-Fortin. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My question is a very simple question with regard to copyright. Copyright is a royalty. It is a salary, a wage. It is something that allows someone to live. My question is simple. How can we call a Copyright Act something that is depriving creators and others from obtaining revenue or income? And this is an essential issue, because we are talking a lot about copyright, but essentially in this bill, it is the deprivation of copyright. We're taking away the possibility from creators from living off the fruits of their creation. So I would like to simply ask the question, how can we hope that we will encourage creation when creators are deprived of revenue? The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague for that question. I would say that income is a right. The artists are entitled to be fairly paid for their work and their efforts. And if they are fairly compensated, they will be encouraged to continue to create, and that is how the wheel turns. And this takes away from the artists millions of dollars in revenues, as I already said. So this long and complex list of exemptions, which does not recognize the rights of creators, has to be eliminated. In fact, these exceptions create a new means by which the Conservatives can have access to protected content without creating new avenues in order to fairly compensate creators for the use of their works. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Questions and comments?
Davenport, short question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill grants a range of new access privileges, but doesn't really increase opportunities for artists to make a living. And this is a big issue for us on this side of the House, because we know that the arts and culture sector is a major economic driver in this country. This bill is an opportunity for us to get copyright right, so that innovation could proceed in this country. And I just wonder if my honourable colleague would just care to comment on the import of the arts and culture sector to our economy and to Canada as a whole.
L'honorable.
The Honourable Member for Brome-Missisquoi, a very brief response, please. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I could say that arts and culture are extremely important in my riding, and they're very important as well across the country. The Cinema Alliance of Canada TV and Artists estimates that arts and culture industries in Canada bring in $85 million per year to Canada. This represents 7.4% of the GDP. It's 1.1 million jobs, 6% of the Canadian labor force. These industries and the jobs that depend on it can only survive in an environment where intellectual property is protected. So I could continue, Mr. Speaker, in saying that there are many cities and towns that live off these artistic efforts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Resume.